In this lesson, we're going to look at fact versus opinion. This is a key concept that you need to understand for the GED Social Studies test. It also comes up on the extended response portion of the language arts test. So this is a doubly important concept. And if you watch my GED extended response video, the second one, it actually touches on fact or opinion. This goes more in depth. So let's start with a little scenario, shall we? We've got two candidates who are running for mayor. Let's look at their differing positions on one key issue. So we'll start with our female candidate. Our city should allow downtown restaurants to sell alcohol. Currently, many of our downtown restaurants are only at half capacity on weekend evenings, while similar restaurants in nearby Dairyville, where alcohol is permitted, have waits of half an hour or more just to get a table. Our downtown restaurants would have the ability for much greater profits with alcohol sales. The average revenue from alcohol is 20 to 25% of restaurant income. Depending on the type of alcohol, profit margins range up to 500% on drinks. If our restaurants are making greater profits, our city gets more tax dollars. All right, let's look at what the other candidate has to say. The city must absolutely not allow the sale or consumption of alcohol downtown. If we allow alcohol to invade our downtown, it will lead to the breakdown of morality in our fair city. Our downtown restaurants are often patronized by families with children. It is completely inappropriate to have alcohol around children. And allowing our restaurants to sell alcohol will lead to increased crime. The best thing about our downtown right now is how safe and clean it is. We must preserve this for future generations to enjoy. So which of those two candidates base their position more on facts? You probably already have an answer in mind. But if you don't, we first need to understand the difference between facts and opinions, because there's a very big difference. So we will return to this scenario in a minute. Let's get a definition of facts and opinions. All right, so first of all, a fact. A fact is a statement that can be verified, meaning it can be proven to be true or false through objective evidence. An opinion is a statement that expresses a feeling, an attitude, a value judgment, or a belief. So an opinion cannot be proven to be true or false through objective evidence. It may feel true for some people, but it can feel false for other people, because opinions, again, are about feelings. So to give you an example, or rather several examples, here's an opinion. The Crimson Tide are the best football team in the SEC. That's an opinion. And why is it an opinion? Well, it's an opinion because you can't objectively prove it with evidence. Now, you might be able to make a really compelling case, but you can't absolutely prove this to be true or false. And what's more, you can't prove it to be true or false all the time because, after all, every year is different. If I wanted to say a fact about the Crimson Tide, I could say the Crimson Tide are the only team to win an SEC title in every decade since the SEC formed. That's a fact. You can prove that statement true or false by researching it. You could go back and look at SEC records. Probably the SEC website would have the records. And you'd be able to see, oh yes, Crimson Tide are the only team to win a title in every single decade since the formation of the SEC. Cool. All right, here's another opinion. Andrew Jackson was a terrible president. Now, you may agree with that opinion, but that does not make this opinion a fact. Andrew Jackson signed the Indian Removal Act, which led to the Trail of Tears. That is a fact. We can go back and we can actually prove that, yes, he signed this act. Yes, this act led to the Trail of Tears. Kristen Stewart's worst movie was The Messengers. Now, someone who really loves Kristen Stewart might disagree with me. Maybe they're She's their favorite actress, and maybe they think that movie was amazing. Clearly, somebody has to have liked the movie because it did make some profit. Not much, but some. So, how could we state something about this movie in the form of a fact? We could say The Messengers has a Rotten Tomatoes score of 11%, the lowest rating for any of Kristen Stewart's movies. This would be a fact. You can go back and you can actually look that up and fact check it and prove true or false. Football is a more interesting sport to watch than golf is. I would imagine this is an opinion that many people share, but that still doesn't make it a fact. And we can make plenty of arguments as to why football's more interesting. That, golf, there's large periods where nothing seems to be happening. Football, there's a lot of action happening and tackles and really exciting passing and running touchdowns, which are my favorite thing to watch. But that doesn't prove that football is more interesting. It's still a matter of opinion. Golf has existed as a sport for longer than football has. That's something you can actually fact check. You can look it up and you can prove yes, the statement is true, or no, this statement is false. That makes it a fact. If Anne Frank had lived, she would be a great grandmother today. That's basically like a prediction, and it's an opinion because we absolutely can't prove it. The fact is that Anne Frank died tragically young. So we have no way of knowing what would have happened with the rest of her life. For all we know, maybe she would have died of illness when she was still relatively young, or maybe she would have decided not to have children. So we don't actually know what would have happened if she had lived. There's a whole story that never took place. If I want to be factual, I could say Anne Frank was born in 1929. You're able to look that up and prove yes or no, this is true or false. So again, a fact has to be something that can be proven true or false through objective evidence. You have to be able to look it up and prove it in some manner. An opinion cannot be proven definitively true or false. It'll be true for some people, false for some people. A fact uses language free from emotion, personal interpretation, or connotation. An opinion uses language that has emotions, personal interpretation, connotation. If you're not sure what connotation is kind of like an added meaning to a word that you know from the context or from life experience. So connotation is very situational and it varies and not everybody gets it. It's kind of like an extra hidden meaning. So it definitely can't be part of a fact because a fact is a fact for any audience. An opinion can mean different things to different people. A fact cannot. A fact will frequently include numbers, measurements, statistics, or dates. That's a really good way to be able to tell if it's a fact. An opinion will use value judgment words or comparisons. So things like better, worst, best. So here is a question for you. Do you think a prediction is a fact or an opinion? Think about that for a second. Is a prediction a fact or an opinion? All right, got an answer? Let's see the true answer. Predictions are opinions. They can't be 100% verified right now. So even a prediction by an expert is still considered an opinion. It's based on their knowledge. It definitely has value, but it's still an opinion. They could be wrong. All right, here's another question for you. If you can prove something is false, is it a fact or an opinion? So if someone makes a statement and they are dead wrong, it's absolutely false. Like, let's say somebody says the USA did not fight in World War II. Still a fact. So a fact is anything that can be proven true or false. So if you can prove it absolutely false, it's still a fact even though it's wrong. Don't get trapped in thinking that a fact has to be true. A fact does not have to be correct. It's in this definition of fact, we're looking at a statement that can be proven true or false versus an opinion, which is a statement that cannot be proven true or false. So words that you should watch out for. If you see any of these words in the statement, there's a good chance that you're dealing with an opinion. Now, this is not an exhaustive list. There's a lot of other words that can cue you in, but these are some common ones. Best, great, beautiful, worst, terrible, bad, should, must, good, strangest, disgusting, wonderful, pretty, most, lovely, delicious. Any of these words, similar words, same meaning, these are a big clue that you're about to see an opinion. Now, a few final reminders. The key question that you should ask yourself is, can this be proven to be either true or false? Could I look it up on Wikipedia or another website to verify it? That is the question you should keep coming back to every time. Would there likely be some record of it somewhere? Even if an opinion uses evidence to support it, it still isn't a fact. If you can't absolutely once and for all prove it true or prove it false, but it's got some great evidence and they really backed it up, still an opinion. If the answer as to whether it's true or false can change, like based on the audience, absolutely still an opinion. So let's look at some examples. All right, I want you to take a stab at this. Are these a fact or an opinion? And see if you can say why. All right, here's our first one. The Union won the U.S. Civil War. So maybe on a piece of paper around you, you can write down fact or opinion. I'm going to give you the answers in a minute. Number 2, it is harder for a 16-year-old to raise a baby than it is for a 30-year-old. Number 3, Barbie should have received more Academy Award nominations. Number 4, the War of 1812 began in 1836. Number 5, George Washington believed that political parties were a terrible idea. Number 6, it is not appropriate to be on your cell phone during class. Number 7, eating fast food isn't bad if you only have it once per week. Number 8, Birmingham, Alabama is home to Vulcan, the world's largest cast iron statue. Number 9, burning the U.S. flag should be a crime. And number 10, on average, college graduates earn more than high school graduates. So on your own, try to figure out whether each of these is fact or opinion. If possible, figure out why you give that answer. And if you want to pause the video here, you can go ahead and finish this at home and then pick back up when you're ready. I'm going to go forward and share the answers. So number 1, the Union won the U.S. Civil War. That is a fact. We can prove it to be true. For one thing, we don't live in the Confederate States of America today. It is harder for a 16-year-old to raise a baby than it is for a 30-year-old. Now you probably have an opinion on this, and that might be a little hint for you that it is in fact an opinion. It depends on the individual person, honestly. I would agree, generally true, but I've known some really, really immature 30-year-olds, and I've actually known a couple of 16-year-olds that could probably run the world in their spare time. So it's an opinion. Barbie should have received more Academy Award nominations. And that one's an opinion. Some people may agree, some people may disagree. And so if someone disagrees with this statement, it's an opinion. The War of 1812 began in 1836. Now, this one, I tried to trick you because clearly this is wrong. But it's still a fact. We can prove it to be false. And remember, facts don't have to be correct. That's a different way of thinking, but for the purpose of this concept of fact versus opinion, facts don't have to be correct. George Washington believed that political parties were a terrible idea. Now, this is another one where I was a little bit mean to you and a little bit tricky. This is a fact. So the key is George Washington believed. This is an opinion, but it was George Washington's opinion, and we can prove that he believed it because he wrote down his opinion. So this is, in fact, a fact. Sometimes they can be a little tricky like that. Number 6, it is not appropriate to be on your cell phone during class. Well, I would absolutely agree with this, and hopefully many of you would as well, but it's still an opinion. Not everyone agrees. I definitely, when I taught K-12, had students that felt it was perfectly appropriate to be on their cell phone during class. Eating fast food isn't bad if you only have it once per week. And that one's an opinion. Some people would argue that you should never eat it. Birmingham, Alabama is home to Vulcan, the world's largest cast iron statue. That's a fact. We can find documentation that proves it to be true. Burning the U.S. flag should be a crime. Now that one's a rather hot button issue, but that is an opinion. You may have strong feelings on it, but people don't all agree. On average, college graduates earn more than high school graduates. This one is a fact. That key word is on average. You can look up average incomes to prove this statement true or prove it false. As it happens, the statement is actually true. All right, so let's return to our scenario from earlier and check it out. We'll revisit what these two had to say. We'll mark facts in blue and opinions in red, and let's see who had more facts and who had more opinions for their position. All right, so first of all, this is a big paragraph. It's a little bit hard to work with. So let's break this into a list of statements to make it easier to look at. So instead of one paragraph, we have 5 statements. Our city should allow downtown restaurants to serve alcohol. Currently, many of our downtown restaurants are only at half capacity on weekend evenings, while similar restaurants in nearby Dairyville, where alcohol is permitted, have waits of half an hour or more just to get a table. Our downtown restaurants would have the ability for much greater profits with alcohol sales. The average revenue from alcohol is 20 to 25% of restaurant income. Depending on the type of alcohol, profit margins range up to 500% on drinks. If our restaurants are making greater profits, our city gets more tax dollars. So, on your own, mark which ones you think are fact and which ones are opinion. You can pause here if you need to. And let's go forward. So the first one, what do you think? That one is actually an opinion. So that's a should statement. That word should is a key to tell you that this is going to be an opinion. Let's check out her next statement. So that second statement is a fact. She could prove to you, if necessary, whether or not downtown restaurants are at half capacity. You could go to Dairyville. You could see if they have waits to get tables. That's something that can be verified. Now, moving on to her third statement, here's where things get a little bit tricky. Because as you can see, this statement is half opinion and half fact, which can happen. Sometimes a compound statement falls into both categories. So in the beginning of this statement, our downtown restaurants would have the ability for much greater profits with alcohol sales. This is a prediction. Now, she's probably right, but it's still a prediction. Also, she did use that word much greater. Well, we can't be sure that restaurants would have much greater profits, probably would have greater profits. But see, that makes it an opinion. We can't prove it true or false. The second part of the statement, the average revenue from alcohol is 20 to 25% of restaurant income. This is something that can actually be verified because we can look up averages and we can find out true or false. As it happens, this is true. So it's not only a fact, it's also a correct fact. Now, her next statement is a fact. Depending on the type of alcohol, profit margins range up to 500% on drinks. And that's something that we could look up. And if we were to look it up, it would actually, again, be something that is true. Isn't that amazing? So, another fact. Now, what about our last statement? That one, here again, it's a prediction. That makes it an opinion. She's probably right. Most likely, if the restaurants make more money, the city would get more tax dollars. But you don't know for sure because maybe the restaurant finds a tax loophole and they manage to not have to pay as much in taxes. So you can't categorically say that this is always going to be true or always going to be false. It's a prediction, therefore it's an opinion. All right, let's look at our male candidate. So once again, working with this whole paragraph's a little bit rough, so let's make it into a list. There we go. Now he has 7 statements. The city must absolutely not allow the sale or consumption of alcohol downtown. If we allow alcohol to invade our downtown, it will lead to the breakdown of morality in our fair city. Our downtown restaurants are often patronized by families with children. It is completely inappropriate to have alcohol around children. Allowing our restaurants to sell alcohol will lead to increased crime. The best thing about our downtown right now is how safe and clean it is. We must preserve this for future generations to enjoy. So, what do we think? You can pause here if you want and go ahead and choose fact or opinion on your own, and then come back when you're ready for the answers. So that first statement, that's a must statement. Anytime you see that word must, that's going to be an opinion. They're trying to advocate for something that you should do, and you just can't categorically always say that that's true or false. Second statement, if we allow alcohol to invade our downtown, it will lead to the breakdown of morality in our fair city. That's a prediction, so that is an opinion. You can also look at his language. See how he uses that word invade our downtown, like alcohol is this enemy coming in to tear up the town. And breakdown of morality, that's a pretty strong statement. Really emotional, charged language like that is usually going to be an opinion. Our downtown restaurants are often patronized by families with children. That is something we can prove true or false. We could go downtown, we can look at who's going in, we can figure out are families often coming in with children. Completely inappropriate to have alcohol around children, that's a matter of opinion. Now, many people might agree with that opinion, but it's still an opinion. Allowing our restaurants to sell alcohol will lead to increased crime. That's another prediction, and we don't know for sure. So that is an opinion. The best thing about our downtown right now is how safe and clean it is. Here again, lots of people may agree with him on that. Some people may disagree with him. It's an opinion. And we must preserve this for future generations to enjoy. Here again is a must statement. And so that word must tells you right away this is going to be an opinion. So let's look at their totals. Our male candidate had 1 fact and 6 opinions, so he used mostly opinions. Meanwhile, our female candidate had 2.5 facts and 2.5 opinions, because remember, 1 was divided between fact and opinion. So she equally used facts and opinions. We could argue that she used more facts than her male counterpart. Now remember, we did not prove who was right or wrong. All we did is figure out who used mainly facts or more facts and who used mainly opinions. That doesn't tell us who you should vote for. It doesn't tell us who the better candidate is. This is solely a matter of looking at who's leaning on opinion, who's leaning on fact. So let's do a little review, shall we? And so at home, you can pause the video when you need to in order to answer these, and then I'll give the answers at the end. We're going to determine whether each sentence is a fact or an opinion. All right, here's your first one. Statistically, women live longer than men. Number 2, blue is a peaceful, relaxing color. Number 3, it is unethical to help one person in a way that harms another person. And number 4, the average giant tortoise will outlive the average human. So on your own, go ahead and mark an F if it's a fact, an O if it's an opinion, and come back when you're ready to hear the answers. Here we go with the answers. Number 1 is a fact. Statistically, women live longer than men. That's something you can actually look up and verify. It's based on average ages. Number 2, that is an opinion. Not everyone agrees that blue is a peaceful, relaxing color. I think most people would probably agree with it, but that does not make it a fact. Number 3, it is unethical to help one person in a way that harms another person. So this is a ethics question, and it's a matter of opinion. Some people might disagree. They might be able to find an instance where you need to harm another person in order to help someone. And the last one, the average giant tortoise will outlive the average human, is a fact. Now, I know that it looks like it's making a prediction, but what you need to look at is that word average. That's the key. The average giant tortoise has a longer lifespan than the average human, and that's what it's getting at. So that does make it a fact. I hope this has been helpful.